James Angleton, the way you spin that story round. Always sharp, just like a tack when you're tracking the price of the dollar and pound. But drop the narrative, that thing that you inherited. Your history homos chariot just pulled up outside. Scott, William, Patrick on the scene, they're breaking up the subroutine. Something's crackling in your brain, MK Ultra make you go insane. Hey, don't you know we're only on the case for a good time, baby? Took a rose pill, now I'm reading these books for a long time, baby. Honey pots and psyop traps, you can trust the plan until you snap. Slop conspiracy everywhere. History homos clear the air. Close your eyes, what's truth or lie? Hiding in the space between. Reality's a tangled scene. Tune in, you'll know what I mean. Close your eyes, what's truth or lie? Hiding in the space between. Reality's a tangled scene. Tune in, you'll know what I mean. Hey, history homos only on the case for a good time, baby. Took a roach pill, now I'm reading these books for a long time, baby.
Two, one. And we're live. Welcome back to the show. This week, Patrick and I will be discussing the influence of Cold War rhetoric on the Chinese Civil War and vice versa.
Who would have thought? I want to preface by saying Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature. Asian person, please.
Yeah. Well, we'll be using all kinds of different
Terms.
terminology, jargon, if you will, ethnic
Vernacular.
jargon, vernacular. Yeah. And
Little pinyin. Now I know what pinyin is. That's one thing I didn't know before.
oh yeah. So, well, we read this book. I like the guy's name, by the way. Odd Arne something. I don't know what his last name is, but his first name is Odd.
Is he some kind of what do you call it?
I
What's
didn't look into him at
Thornley's?
all. He could be no, not Carrie Thor. Oh,
What's it?
Transcendental. Yeah,
Is he a
whatever.
Discordian? What's he playing
Discordian,
games with
yeah.
us?
I don't know, but I didn't look into him at all. He could be a odd one, but I pun intended. But no, I enjoyed this book. I'm glad we picked it up. The
Very good.
title of the book is Revolution and Cold War. And it presented a fairly heterodox interpretation of the Chinese Civil War, which is, that's our kind of brand, is the heterodox interpretation of history.
Oh yeah. No, we love reading a perfectly normal, reasonable, passable, put it on any bedside book and just reading between the lines, if you
Well,
will.
this guy he presents a fairly I would like I said a fairly contradictory perspective on the entire as opposed to what I guess like the cultural like normative memes about this time period in history. Um because like for instance, I think most people think like the entire situation of the Chinese Civil War like immediately out the gate is like the Cold War narrative is that like the Soviets were just behind the Chinese communists the entire time. And it's in fact it's actually a lot more complex than that.
Oh,
And
really?
to the extent that did you not read the book? That's like
Oh
what the
no,
whole point.
no, I understand. No, I'm just saying you don't say that it's not literally just such stomped on John Birch Society rhetoric
Yeah,
that has become like part of our like you know it like the back of your hand, but you
cultural
can't tell
lore.
you
Yeah.
where I heard that. But I
Or like
learned
the
diddly about
idea that
this
we
in
dropped the
school.
nuclear bomb as like a negotiation tactic to scare the Soviets. I literally had teachers tell me that in high school,
We
where
dropped it
like,
by accident.
yeah, no, I'll tell
All
you
right.
why they dropped it is because they wanted to kill a bunch of people and see what it did.
Well, it did that. I'll tell you. Um,
But
yeah, and we won't get into the veracity of nuclear, no, because
yeah,
that's
well,
stupid.
I mean, we still
We're
don't have
past
time for
that.
that. We already know.
Past that.
I mean, obviously they do something because otherwise, why would Japanese people look like that? Been
Yeah.
through this many, many, many times.
Do you, I mean, why do the Russians, why are they so afraid of, just let them get into Siberia, Yeah, you know?
They have a lot of shit going on in Siberia. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
the area, the age of exploration. The Russians were all up, like going all through the North Passage and stuff like that, and
hmm
all kinds of shit that they were up to in there. It's like they definitely consider sovereignly theirs.
I mean, get an easement, you can still pass through, but like, clearly these people are bunched up. These people, like,
Well,
cannot they can't tell each other apart and they cannot get along. Or actually, funny enough, there was a lot of telling apart. This guy's Manchu, this guy's Han,
yeah, I
this
was gonna say that
guy's,
what a place to bring that sort of
uh,
rhetoric up. But anyway, let's talk about we got to get set the stage here. Now again, I want a full sort of disclosure here. I did sort of misplay the order of episodes here.
you don't
But this
say.
is going to be well, no, I don't know. I think I can do a fairly comprehensive thumbnail sketch of what gets us to this point. And we can spend some time on that, of course. But I did not realize that the topic that the topic I chose was because I wanted to examine the Cold War angle here. You know what I mean? Which is why I chose the book. And I thought that there would be more in the book encompassing what led up to the sort of thesis of the book.
Oh no.
Um, and so I didn't realize that there wouldn't be a ton on like where like the literally the year between the years 1911 to 19 like 40. Like all that time was before this week a mystery to me.
Mm.
However, I have spent a lot of hours in the last 2 days on getting brushed up, kind of. So I don't want to say that this is an authoritative account of the time period between the Qing Dynasty and the like Chinese Civil War proper. But I do have a decent understanding of it, and like I feel like I can give you guys like a like a brief outline of because it's a lot of time, even regardless of the fact that it was like an extremely turbulent time period with lots of different twists and turns. It also was like a long period of time. Just imagine trying to truncate like 30 years into like a preamble for like what we want to
Yeah.
talk about, you know?
Yeah. You told me we are doing Chinese Civil War, and I was like, all right, great. You betcha, bucko. I come back, I don't know, however long later, saying when, which part
Yeah.
of it? It there because
Well, to be
everyone
fair, this
seems
is
to
the
set
Civil War.
different.
This is what's considered the Chinese Civil War. This
Right.
this piece.
They
But
weren't getting along.
they
Listen,
were no, they were not famously. They weren't getting along famously at
this
this
is the
point.
divorce, but the real stories leading up
The
to it.
unhappy marriage, yeah.
But no,
But yes,
where to begin? In the
I could say.
1800s, I
Well,
don't know if
we
that's
well,
necessary,
we
but
have a. I will say, so this is a good prime primer to this would be for you to go back and if you really want to go to deep dive here. If not,
opium
or
wars.
maybe go back to it after you're done listening to this one. But William and I did two episodes on Chinese history. The first being about the Opium Wars, and the second one being about like the I forget the name of Shao. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who said he was Jesus's brother,
The Taiping Rebellion.
Taiping Rebellion.
You
Yeah,
mean she just she just Trang? Is that no?
yeah. She ping on my jow until I sun.
Oh no.
But anyway,
And then
but it
40
was but either
million
way,
people died.
well, true, but more importantly, that the reason that really sticks, that number is so high, is because it was also encompassed within the second Opium War. Like that's
Right.
why it was so bad.
A
Um,
little crossover.
right.
Um,
So it was sort of like a Hopium Wars 1 and 2 episodes. However, but I say that to say this, it would set the stage nicely for what we're going to talk about now, which is the end of the Qing dynasty. So as I've mentioned in those episodes, the Qing dynasty is administered not by Han Chinese. The majority ethnic group in China are called Han Chinese. Um, and the Qing
oh,
Empire
honey.
was all right.
Oh, honey.
That's just racist. That's coming from me.
Uh, rock
But
me up and throw away a key.
yeah,
All right.
I'm gonna if you don't keep it if you keep it
All
up.
right.
But what's it called? So the empire though is was administered by the Manchus. The Manchu are the ruling elite of the Qing Empire, who are from Manchuria, obviously originally, but through conquest in the wake of the power vacuum left behind by the Mongols, they took power and they were there for like a good three some odd 100 years. And by the time the Opium Wars had ripped through, like most of their sovereignty is now crumbling to pieces because the country is basically administered. It's been ripped apart and dissected and sort of administered by various different European powers who've like got a beachhead in several different regions, and are basically just fucking extracting wealth from it essentially. Because if you recall, China is a very big place and the people live very simply and poorly, and they have no need for material goods that were manufactured outside the country, particularly of the caliber that like European powers like Germany and France and England might be able to trade.
Yeah.
So this was like just a
Go pawn that
wholesale.
shit off on the cargo cults.
Yeah,
These people are better than that.
well, I don't know that they weren't because the problem was is that in the lack of anything that they would want from these places, they were getting sold drugs essentially. And
That's right. Yes, priorities.
yeah.
We need
And we
goods
know
from
where,
them.
by the way, I also, by the way, this is like all tied up in international finance. This is like the Sassoon family is benefiting massively off of this money. They married into the Rothschilds as well as being financiers of their in their own right. They were the financiers of the Ottoman Empire before it collapsed as well. Or
The
sorry, no, the Sultanate of Baghdad, actually, my bad.
shit. And this opium money goes right up to the 40s. These,
Yeah.
triad connections and so on, they carry over. But we'll put the blame on whoever when we get there.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's. I'm gonna just gonna say right now it's the
Jiang,
CIA. Yeah.
Jiangxi,
Um.
Mr. Mr. National, Mr. National man over there.
Yeah. I don't. I know you were looking for like
Ka-ching
a
sheck.
ideology to hang it
Ka-ching
on, but
shekels.
yeah, there we go. Now he's got. Now you're on the trolley. Chiang Kai Shekels is fuck. That's good. Out of the mouth of babes. Here we
Uh,
go.
yeah, no, I was buffering, but I got there.
Yeah, we got there.
Don't
But anyway,
slow the
so
trolley down for me.
and the yeah, so okay, at this point in the late Qing Empire, everything's fucked up. Like the government has like no large parts of the country are ruled over by warlords who are like landlords. Basically, it's like feudalism essentially,
Yeah.
and this is extremely corrupt, including the practice of like asking the taxes for 10 years in advance and then acting like the people are debtors for not having paid it. Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. You can see why communism happened there, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
I mean, never have I ever been so sympathetic.
To communism, dude,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
dead serious. Yeah, I know. All right, we'll get there. We'll get. There's so much to
Hit me a
cover
couple
here.
nights ago. I was like, what the hell's going on with me?
I know, really, dude. But anyway, so yeah, but basically in 1911, this all comes to a boiling point. There's a revolution. There's actually several revolutions. The Boxer rebellions earlier than that, but that is squashed.
Oh, you mean the Society of what is it?
The
Honorable and
Righteous
Righteous
Fists.
Fists? Hell
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
it's kind of rocks. Yeah,
Sick.
maybe that's an
Not good. They
episode another
they
time.
murdered the ever living shit out of people,
Of
but
course, yeah. But several of them happen, and finally in 1911, like an all-encompassing one happens, and it forces the Qing Emperor, who is a little boy actually, to abdicate. And he lives because he makes an appearance later in the story, if you recall.
the most Curb Your Enthusiasm-esque like reintroduction of a person in the historical
Yeah.
narrative I've ever seen.
Well,
This
let's
kid
not
was
jump.
abdicated, yeah, abdicated at 6 years old, was it? And he was
Yeah.
brought onto the throne at what, 4? And that was a was that a puppet position? Was that a sort of
Well, I'm assuming that like the eunuchs probably ran the show. Although, actually, wait a minute. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have empresses, so it was probably his mother running the place.
and that's where it brings in the Empress, the aunt over there, that mean lady whose name escapes me. Right at the
Yeah,
turn of the
well,
century.
oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's I didn't study up enough on that. Let's talk
She
about
poisoned her nephew. It was awful. Very bad. We'll get to that, folks.
yeah. But from 1911 to 1923, it's the Republic of China. But the central authority is splintered into a million pieces, but the warlords are still there. Like
Oh
basically
yeah.
there's still it's still this meet the old boss, same as the new
Same as the
boss.
new boss.
Yeah. And at in the in night but in 1923 a political party called the Kuomintang or Kuomintang, depending on how you want to pronounce it, which
Let's not get
essentially
political.
yeah, essentially means like nationalist party,
Yeah.
which was started by a guy named Sun Yat-sen. He makes an effort to create a central authority, military, and sort of unite the country. And who steps in, by the way? The hand rubbers, the
Oh man.
Communist International step in.
Commie International. Dun dun dun. And they've got pamphlets.
Yeah.
Don't ask where they
But
got
plenty of
printed.
pamphlets. But the part of the but during this entire time period, like so the Nationalist Party was like a party. I mean, it was like a partisan group, I guess. They didn't have like a Senate, or maybe they did have some sort of ersatz like assembly or something, but
I think
it
they had
did
a
nothing.
yeah, I think they had a lot of different parties and
Yeah,
the
but the Chinese, but basically
GMP
it
and
became, I was gonna say it
CCP.
came down to basically two factions, which is the GMD or the KMT, if you depending on what to call it. We're gonna call it the Guomindang the GMD because that's what was in the book. But
Mhm.
you can say it however the fuck you want.
You will
And
see it otherwise referenced to as the KMT.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry.
But it's the same thing. It's Kuomintang or Kuomintang, and it's the literally same thing. It's just pronunciation.
Oh,
But and then of course the Chinese Communist Party was in existence too. And was actually started by at the University of Peking, if I'm not mistaken, which I think
mm.
might be Beijing. Now that I'm thinking about it. Oh no, no, it's in the South because I know that Mao Zedong is from the South. But regardless, oh, Peking is I think is actually in Sichuan.
You want me to do a verification
That's
or?
who gives a shit. That doesn't matter. It's not one of the important places, but regardless, communism was basically taught to the Chinese at their main university by a Jewish Russian guy from the Soviet Union named Grigory Voitinsky. And yeah,
Ni hao.
he instructed the guy who founded the Chinese Communist Party in Marxism. And but interestingly, well, we'll talk about Mao Zedong when he's kind of relevant. But Mao Zedong obviously is the most important figure in the Chinese Communist Party for the most part, to the extent that his thought is considered distinct from the rest of Marxism. And the main piece of that is the idea that, well, Marxism inherently is like urbanite, and it plays to, and it sort of insinuates that like dialectical forces insist that there will be revolution from factory workers, whereas Maoist thought is that can and will be from rural farmer peasants. And also I think the idea is that the thing with Maoism versus Marxism is Marxism is universalist and it's internationalist, and Maoism is national is semi it's not nationalist in the sense that it's like nationally chauvinist, but it nations can utilize revolution in order to become unfettered from colonial influence, instead of there being, you know what I mean? Like there's like this idea that within there's like actually this is a fucking argument within leftism, I think, by the way, is the idea that there's like the universalist Marxists and ones who are like, I guess they're kind of like Nazbols a little bit.
So the difference between what the Maoists expected from the Soviet Union versus what the Soviet Union actually did.
Important distinction,
Yeah.
because that does come into play majorly in throughout what we're talking about here, which is the CCP very much would was happy to work with the GMD, first of all because
The
they're
USSR.
Chinese, and there's a sense of we should work together because we're Chinese, we're a nation, and also they would try to get favors and shit from outside powers, including America and the Soviet Union. And in fact, by the way, the CCP was very much open to working with America. By the way, it was not a foregone conclusion in the minds of the Chinese. Now, I'm not saying that America would ever go for this. In fact, I'm going to, in fact, intensely say that that is definitely part of the conspiratorial underpinning of this entire topic. But as far as the CCP and Mao Zedong go, absolutely not. It was not a foregone conclusion that there would be like a robust alliance between the Chinese communists and America. In fact, he had this sort of unfortunately false conception of almost like this is how he's interpreted dialectical determinism, which is the idea that history is a series of conflicts between progressive forces and reactionary forces. And for this reason, he actually saw a natural ally in FDR. And he said that's why he didn't think that it was, even after FDR died and he realized that he wasn't going to be working with that faction anymore. He very much understood the idea that within America there are both progressive and reactionary forces, and if he could just somehow get in touch with that other faction, that that Truman did not represent, by the way,
Ooh.
then it would be possibly helpful to them or whatever. You know what I'm
If I
saying?
yeah, if I may pull a quote here. Mao, this is from
Good
page
book.
67, Seventh Party Congress and CCP Foreign Policy. Mao attempted to understand American policy in terms of a conflict between progressive and reactionary elements, and his analysis of the international situation indicated that the progressive elements were ascendant. It was therefore puzzling to him and to the other main CCP leaders that the U.S. policy in China seemed to become increasingly anti-communist. And I think his logic stands. I think he has a point. It's like these guys
Yeah.
are, you
Well, he
know,
didn't. He's a fucking. This is he's a fucking idiot because he thinks that dialectics are real.
yeah, that people will
He
just
doesn't
do the
realize that
opposite
if
of what you're
you
doing.
just get a really rich, powerful elites, they can just buy both sides. Then
Mhm.
dialectics go out the window, buddy. And he doesn't realize that the Marxism in general is a falsity and another aspect of the entire false dialectic system.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. Just imagine if that train never got to its, destination, or those
Yeah.
pamphlets just, flew out the window. I,
And
I
there's a
have
few
a
things. There's a few moments, linchpin moments in this story that are like, damn, things could have been very different if just a few little differences had happened.
the now how quickly do you want to breeze through the first alliance
Well, let's do that
between
right now. Let's
okay.
go back to Sun Yat-sen. So Sun Yat-sen, he kind of creates the Republic of China, but he doesn't do good.
Oh man.
No, he gets exiled at some point, and but regardless, after this point, he dies eventually, and his next guy in control is a guy named Chiang Kai-shek, Chiang Kai-shekels. But apparently in Chinese, I'm told his real name is Chiang Jieshi. But for
Who
some
wants to
reason, it's
hear
just
it?
one. I'm too familiar with him as Chiang Kai-shek, and also I'm sure the audience is far too familiar with him as Chiang Kai-shek for us to
Yeah.
refer to him in his proper Chinese name. But
Yeah, no,
I
yeah.
hasten to say that Mao Zedong's real name is Mao Zedong.
I think so too. Unless it's
Yeah,
like, Mike.
Mao Zedongstein. No, Mr. Dongstein's my father. Call me Mao.
Have you read this? It's brand new
But anyway,
from New York.
but regardless, this happens in a time period of like extreme strife in the country, and like the warlords have basically each area in China is autonomous and tyrannical,
Yeah.
and the Communist International, they step in actually, and they bring members of the CCP to broker a peace with the Kuomintang, and they build a modern army. Basically, they what actually happens is they have regiments of the Republican National Party, or Republican National Army, which is the GMD army, and some of the regiments are just fully encapsulated CCP cadres, and they work
S-
together. And this is called the first United Front.
And meanwhile, ha most of these peasants who have been under the thumb of these warlords for however long,
Mm-hmm.
back unto the, time of the
Time immemorial.
King Dynasty,
Yeah.
Qing Dynasty, um, they still think that there's an emperor. They didn't even know there was an empress for a minute or what have you. They think it's the emperor's 10th birthday, but all of a
They didn't
sudden
realize that they're so, that's what I'm saying. They're so
you come,
rural and completely
they're so
isolated.
poor and so Asian and
Yeah.
so they
They're
just
like,
need your help.
they're like walking. I have to do this joke. They're like walking down the street and they're like, "Oh, look, the emperor! Oh, look, the emperor!" Get it? Because they all look the same.
Oh shit.
I'm
Um, uh,
kidding, guys.
yeah, no, some guys with button shirts showed up and taught them how to read. So you can
Yeah.
imagine there was a real things got riled up.
Well,
These
we'll
people
talk
don't know
about
how to
that in a
read.
minute. Yeah, well, that's what
Um,
that is. Well, that's an interesting observation there because almost unilaterally in the entire country of China, which is millions of people.
they're in the same boat as us. They don't know how to read that shit either.
Yeah, right. It's true. I mean, to be fair, what a language to first learn how to read.
Oh, this is what it is? Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, so when the Chinese communists would come into your area, the first thing they would do is teach you how to read before they even handed you a rifle.
Get out of here. I don't need this shit.
Yeah, I know.
Give me
Imagine
the
that must have
rifle.
weeded them out, must have weeded a few people out.
I'm gone.
But the idea is it's kind of reasonable if rhetorically speaking, because it's
Yeah,
like, okay, if you're going to be a dyed in the wool fighter for this cause, like you better at least have a fucking working literate understanding of what it is
yeah,
on
absolutely.
paper.
You better get the lingo down, the vernacular, as they say.
Yeah.
Uh, but truly, though, not joking, you do need to understand, do you really believe in this?
Yeah.
And it worked because once these people were made to understand more or less you know, the gist of the communist sales pitch,
Hmm.
how could they argue with it? What else were they going to go do?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, I do want to say that it goes without being said that not all of them actually truly functionally understood the tenets of Marxism. In fact, I remember in that excellent documentary. What was that called? The 100 Year Revolution or something? The name of that documentary, whatever. There's a very, very good documentary on YouTube that try to find out while I'm talking.
Hmm.
But in it, they have a bunch of amazing interviews with people like principals in this story, and it's in like the 1970s, I think they shot it, and a bunch of just random, not random, but people who were there, like eyewitnesses to all this stuff, who lived through this terrible, terrible shit happening, and like these old Chinese women, Chinese communist women, who are like talking about how terrible it was like for women prior to the communists taking over, and how they were like, I will, no matter what. They're like, I don't give a shit about Marxism. I just want to live in a system that doesn't have me be literally sold by my father to a random 30-year-old guy when I'm 7.
Yeah. Is that so much to ask?
And by the way, I'm okay with this woman being a communist for having lived through that. Like, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Especially given the other thing, I want you to understand. This is not me simping for communism, by the way. I want you to really understand this. Coming from my ideological perspective, nothing that happens in the continent of China should be up to me. You get what I'm saying?
Yes. I second that.
Yeah.
I got no
I
say.
want them to do whatever it takes to be happy in their lives. Truly. Truly. And I don't know, I know it. A lot of those things involve creepy crawly animals in their mouths that I don't want to think about or have anything to do with. So God bless, legitimately. And another thing is, I think that's a whole other can of words. I was going to talk about missionary work because that comes into play when we talk about JBS, by the way. But
Mhm.
um, I was just gonna say is the I do have a complex take on that, but I would say you're kind of wasting your time evangelizing to Chinese or Asians broadly speaking, because they fundamentally evolved in a different sort of environment than us. And the reason, I think a big part of the reason why, you know what, maybe they need it more than anyone because of that, but but
Well,
in the same breath, I understand like them being culturally sort of dulled to the ecclesiastic experience of the West. You know what I mean?
before we get too far off it, I want to say, was it 50 years of life at Esalen?
It was not 50 Years of Life at Esalen.
Was
Why
it
would it be that?
well, you said 100 years, and I thought you just had that wrong.
Oh
Celebration at Big
no, I'll
Sur,
tell
here
you the
comes
name.
everybody.
China: A Century of Revolution.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a documentary about the Esalen Institute.
Why would I be talking about that
Well, because you were talking about the Esalen Institute, weren't you?
before we were recording?
All right, listen. Folks, sound off in the comments if
Yeah,
I'm
hit F
being
for fucking
gaslit.
Patrick's. Yeah. Hit F in the chat
Bullshit.
for
I'm re-listening to this episode very
I didn't
intently.
bring up Esselin. It was right before we started rolling.
Either way, uh,
Yeah,
yeah, they
okay.
were they were the missionaries were there before the communists, and it didn't take as quickly as communism
Yeah.
did. Maybe it's given, the nature
I'm
of
just
one
saying there's a
versus the other.
long ranging history of missionary work being cover for intelligence work. And I
Hmm.
just think that given that hazard and given the cultural differences between us and particularly Asians, and this is not like them where Christianity's too good for them or whatever, but I just think they have fundamental understandings about the world due to their sort of
Frame.
epigenetic framework. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're yeah.
There's things to overcome. Entirely different histories,
The amount of
trajectories.
people all in one place and it's all flat and they can have rice and you know what I mean? Like, just the way that they had a different path.
That's right. Wheat is a more of a bitch to cultivate, frankly.
Is
Um,
that so? I'm pretty sure
oh,
rice is rough going because you gotta have those
I
big pools of water everywhere, which probably means you're gonna have
must be
fucking
nice swimming around.
skeeters, you're gonna die of yellow fever.
They should be impervious.
Given the name, you'd think.
That's what I think. But listen, all
But
right, let's get back on the
well, this is relevant. I think it's relevant.
Trans-Manchurian Railroad.
Well, anyway, yeah. So the KMT and the Chinese communists are buddies for the first of several times, and the First United Front is a massive success. They move their way north um, to towards Shanghai, and they one by one just demolish the rule of each one of these warlords. And actually, for the first time in history, China becomes united under one civic government. Which, by the way, they're about to get to their final. If I'm not Shanghai or Beijing further north. I think actually Beijing is further north. But before they got to Shanghai, Chiang Kai-shek goes, Chiang Kai-shekels goes, I'm pretty sure we got this, guys. Can we like start killing the communists now?
Yeah, and that the man has no sense of how to check the room. No
Yeah.
vibe whatsoever. He
Yeah,
does not know what
he
time it is.
sucks. Actually, all these I
Oh,
gotta
he's
say,
the
I
worst.
really dislike the I'm not saying the commies are cool or anything. They actually kind
No,
of put me off in other ways. But
sure.
the nationalists, they like embody all of the worst like tropes about like corrupt like bureaucratic government and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like
career military types,
career
that whole
military,
thing.
and then but better than that, their whole purpose, their whole raison d'etre was to eliminate the warlord system, and then they just literally put in new warlords that were them. Like,
Some of the warlords just acquiesced very, very
yes,
peaceably, and they didn't have to even get up. Don't get
yeah,
up. No, just listen.
yeah. You just have to pledge fealty to us. Essentially, that is what happened. Yeah,
Yeah. And let us know if
and
any communists are running around.
I mean, you can imagine what this would do to the local population who rallied around this sort of movement, and only to have this happen.
Yeah.
And then go, oh shit. Well, you'd think, by the way, that might cause almost a sea change of people changing their opinion to being pro supporting the communists. And what do you know? It did have an impact. Maybe not a sea change, but
It was gradual and inevitable and uh, uh, just unending. They were constantly gaining
yeah,
uh, popular
support.
morale and support. I think the numbers were what was it like by I think the communists had something like 400,000 troops,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, in
and
that
they
initial,
tripled that
yeah,
while the nationalists just lost 1.5 million
yeah.
because
Well, that was during the Japanese time, but yes, we're
right,
gonna get
right.
to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So okay,
I'm
so
talking about the
he's
numbers now.
purges the communists. And like literally it's like so fucked up because they like literally like they were just marching not together. They were different like platoons or whatever, but they basically just like secretly without telling them said, "Okay, now start go killing them." And like these guys were like comrades or whatever, and then they fucking this starts happening, and it's like, oh, I guess this shit again. And so there's guerrilla war for the next few years, like in the areas surrounding where because here's one thing, this was kind of a short-sighted thing for the GMD, is that they allowed the communists to take various settlements entirely. Like it was there were no like I said before they weren't mixed regiments, so that meant that there were areas that were just completely controlled by the CCP, and
Mm.
then other areas that are controlled by the GMD. So when they turn to fight them now, oh shit! Now we have we have an uphill battle because there's actual settlements that are supporting these cadres,
Mm.
and again, it took years and years for them to do encirclement campaigns and push them eventually to actually, is it almost 10 years? Yeah, 10 years basically go by. And in that 10 years, the the Long March happens. The government is set up, the GMD government is set up at Nanking, and the Chinese communists are on the run for like years. And actually,
Yeah.
during this time, by the way, fucking Mao loses power at some point. And but at one point in 1934, the Long March happens, and it was like a period of an entire year where this 400,000 people move on foot hundreds of miles across what is flat terrain, to be fair, but like, exposes the elements. Like it's not like a well supplied wagon train. Like I think 1 in 10 men died of starvation
Yeah.
and exposure.
That's the number I came across continually was 1 in 10,
1 in 10,
1 in 10.
yeah.
Um, which n- actually, no, I'm sorry, 1 in 10 survived.
Oh, jeez.
What are we talking about?
Oh
Folks,
my.
for the record, let's correct that. I'm sorry. No,
Only
no,
one
no.
in 10 survived the Long March?
Yeah, that's what I kept seeing was that something like there were maybe 7,000 uh left under Mao's under his leadership.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure he
basically
was leading the charge.
during these time, those like 5 years where they were like just running around central China, they were taken in by the Comintern again. And
Mm.
what was that guy's name? Braun
Oh,
is a German
O-
communist of
Otto Braun,
Otto
wasn't it?
Braun. I mean, that sounds pretty Aryan, to be honest, but no accounting for political belief. Um, he was a communist, and he was of the firm sort of continental European belief that guerrilla tactics were like no fair,
Passe.
passe, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
he insisted that they work on having similar tactics to the GMD, actually, and to the extent where they actually would mirror GMD tactics of building these buildings, these like little like bunkers, and then they would like attack each other's bunkers and shit. And this had terrible results. And it's like, so another thing is like, I can't believe they gave over like sort of strategic control to this dude. That's so insane. I realize that he's like a high-ranking communist rich guy who shows up probably with a bunch of money and guns and shit. But like, yeah, I don't know, man.
You expect a communist to say no to free guns and money? Come on, man.
True.
How else is it
I
gonna?
can't say no to free guns and money.
I mean, who could? But how else
Who
do you get a
could?
party started if you got,
True.
scruples? You gotta have none.
Anyway, so after the Long March, they end up in Yan'an, which is now modern day Shanxi. And that is their home for a good long time. So this is like 1935 until 1949 is the year that their new base is in Beijing. They're basically centered in this place in Yan'an. Um, and yeah, so this is 1937, and so yeah, this is during this period. The next period, it's like there's two Chinas essentially. There's the Chinese communist side and the Kuomintang controlled areas, and that's like your urban centers. That's where like all. By the way, this is when This is when Indiana Jones 2. Remember the beginning of the movie and they're in
True.
China, they're in Shanghai.
Very true. Very good first scene in a film. I enjoy that.
Yeah, it is good. But it just goes to show you like how decadent and like degenerate it was like
Mm.
under the Kuomintang control.
Well, of course, yeah. How hard is it to keep 5% of the populace totally just bedazzled and
Yeah,
clueless and not giving a shit?
and
Uh,
drinking and wearing Western style clothes.
buttoning their shirts like who do they think they are? God. Come on.
The funny thing was is like there was like interviews with those like peasant women who were like the communists and they were like, "Yeah, we knew people who never owned clothes."
Constantly borrowing clothes.
No, they were nude.
Oh, what?
Yeah, they were
No
like
one,
lived it. This is how poor they were. They didn't have fucking clothes. And so when the
oh
Chinese
man.
communists came, they were like, "Here's clothes, guys." And they're like, "Are you
Huh?
sure? You think I deserve clothes?" And those are like the strong, like that was Mao's strongest soldier right there.
I
Like the
bet,
guy,
yeah.
like
I don't
literally
need
was
help
giving.
putting it
He's
on.
like, I don't, I hate to make this reference because it shows that I'm gay and I read the book, but it's like those, like in fucking Harry Potter. Remember the elves who you give them clothes and they're suddenly free? Like
Thou bees a free peasant?
Tao be, yeah.
Thou bees a free elf. Oh shit,
Anyway, but
man.
I'm just saying it's really bad,
What a
man.
horror. Yeah, it's not good. And I can relate. It makes me want to I have a book of poems by Mao Zedong at home. Like a little book of poems. I think I've showed
Yeah,
it to you.
isn't it like the book that he made everyone in the country own?
Very well could be. I want
Yeah.
to if I was there,
We'll
I'd
dig into
whip it
that
out.
sometime.
Yeah,
We'll dig it
that'd be
into that
fun.
some other sort of
With
bonus episode
with
maybe.
this frame of reference now, it's very funny to
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, another thing was
yeah.
so that documentary though, Century Revolution or whatever, it there was some amazing interviews. That guy Chen Li Fu, remember he was in the book? He was like one of the GMD like top dudes, and he's
Yeah,
like interviewed in it, and he's old
that's
as shit,
crazy.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but dude, one of the most dark parts of the entire fucking documentary I saw was he's talking about the time period after the GMD purged the CCP from like society essentially, and they would just do like terror campaigns in peasant areas to make sure that no one would like be even sympathetic to the CCP, which
Mm.
of course then turned around and made them want to be joined, by the way. But like for instance, he's like this is him genuinely talking to the camera going, "Yeah, we would know who were communists because of what kind of stuff that they were talking about. And then we would search some of their houses and we would find communist stuff and then we would execute them." And he said, sometimes we wouldn't find, and this is the most fucked up part. He's smirking when he's saying this, smirking at the camera. Like this, it's an unmistakable facial expression. He's smirking. He goes, sometimes we wouldn't find the material, but we used to always say, it's better to kill an innocent man than risk the chance he does become a communist. Your base nationalist political party, sir.
Lord forgive me for the things I'm thinking about the China man right now. Come on, dude. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Golly, it reminds me of what those guys in Vietnam. Wait.
Which ones?
Oh, never mind. I don't want to impugn the flag now. Listen.
Oh, yeah,
Listen.
sure, sure.
Listen. You put a
Oh,
gun
the
and
Phoenix
enough
program,
you
yeah.
put enough dirt under a man's fingernails, he'll do some horror.
I was thinking that's funny because it's funny you mentioned this. I know this was like obviously way pre, OSS and, military intelligence funded mind control experiments or anything. But it is interesting that the GMD is very much equivocal with the CIA post 1949 once they're limited to Taiwan and further uh it's just like it just seems
Yeah.
like such like intensely similar sort of behavior on the part of them as like this Phoenix program experiments. I don't know.
I think you know, Scott. I think you do know. I think I think that prior to Phoenix and Psy War and s- you know, what's his name? Uh,
Aquino.
no, I'm trying to think of a former Phoenix guy who was a noted serial killer. Herb Baumeister.
Herb
Is that him?
Baumeister was in Phoenix program, but
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple of
Some
them.
lunk. But either way, there is a subset of the populace, apparently, unfortunately, who seems to be predisposed to I guess this being war being what turns their switch on and off, you
Hmm.
know. And that with I would pray that that can be redirected in a way to something that's not malevolent,
Killing, yeah.
but um prior to this being like systematized and, like really, like put down to a real recipe that you and I can,
Mm.
just clock from, a glance at any kind of material nowadays, mind control was kind of like just a unspoken,
Tactic of crazy
yeah,
people.
of waging war effectively, you
Yeah.
know? It's you have to believe it, and if you don't believe it, you have to believe that there's no point in
Or
making it
maybe it's
out of
something that
here.
you find when you're on at war.
Yeah, it's
Something
not
that
the
finds
war.
you when you're at war.
Yeah, the heart of darkness, you step
Yeah.
in it.
I don't know. But anyway, so in 1937, the Japanese invade mainland China, and specifically in Manchuria. Given that Manchuria is an area that I believe it's very rich in iron, which is why they wanted it.
Hmm.
And by the way, I should mention this, by the way, is that famously, Japan has shit iron. Did you know this?
That's
Because it's
so
a
ironic.
volc. I know. Well, it's a volcanic island, meaning it has new iron that hasn't been. It's been formed in only in the last couple million years, as opposed to say the mainland, which is like way older, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why they had, in Japan they had the folded steel a gazillion times. That's how they
Amazing.
got it to not break
No
instantly.
shit. Amazing. So you can take shit and turn it into gold. It's alchemical, but you just have to do it 1,000 times.
Yeah, I guess. I think
No
that's
piss
what, yeah, all the
required.
alchemists were trying to do. It's just like if we
They
keep
just
doing it, eventually we'll figure it out.
stop pissing on the blade. You're cooling it off. I'm trying to work here.
But
Um,
yeah, anyway, so but
Amazing.
famously though,
Yeah.
the Japanese are short on iron, and the iron itself is crap. So
They're
they
also
wanted to
short
go
on
to
ladies with little feet, so they need to go to the mainland for
for
those.
those tied up feet. Yeah,
Famously, the Empress did outlaw foot binding, though it never stopped totally.
I would think.
That
Yeah,
was right at
seems
the
like a
turn of the century.
culturally ingrained practice. But yeah,
I'm
so
with it.
they take over Manchuria, and they build up a massive industrial base there and rails that go to. And by the way, I should also say is that they didn't stop there. They got a shitload of China. They got Beijing. They obviously got down to Nanking, which was the GMD headquarters, capital,
They
and
raped their Nan King.
supposedly.
There you
No,
go.
I'll say this. I will say this. I I'm going to be balanced here. Obviously, in World War II,
Bad things.
brutal war crimes were committed by all parties.
But
All parties.
yeah,
There is not a singular party in the World War II, any of the theaters of combat that did not commit terrible war crimes to some degree. I'm gonna guess.
Daffy
Actually, I
Duck was
want
Hitler's body double,
true.
if I remember.
And specifically, I'm gonna say that before anyone comes at me, because I know that they love to say that the Germans didn't do any outside of the alleged ones. Um, there's some fairly good allegations of Eastern Front shenanigans going
Yeah.
on.
You don't have to convince me very hard that soldiers, uh, after seeing the most horrible things that no human should ever see, and the
Then
only
turn around and
person,
do terrible things. Yeah.
yeah, and Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lean into it, but we could have a veteran on to beat us over the head about that. But we can't imagine what
I certainly can't.
I don't want to,
I don't want
and
to either.
this is the closest we get to, and this is close enough.
However, I do think as a part of the overall downplaying of Allied war crimes within
Mm,
the Pacific theater, such as the dropping of two nuclear bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
never heard of that.
Um, yeah, I think there's a reasonable political motivation for the Allied forces to play up certain aspects of war crimes committed by the Axis powers in both theaters.
You got any strong thoughts on Unit 731
I think it's
on the
fake.
topic? Oh, no
I think
shit.
the whole thing's
Oh
fake.
my goodness.
It seems like it was written. If it
I,
sounds like it was written in a science fiction book, it probably was.
I don't know, man. I believe that they put people in hyperbolic chambers and just
Well, what do
squish
you think
them.
Dragon Ball Z came from? The hyperbolic time chamber, dude.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's awful. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It kind of
That's
makes sense to
another
me.
day. We'll do a bonus
You're
episode
right.
on
You're
Unit
right. You're
731.
right.
Let's
I've
not
thought a lot about the hyper whatever the
the
hell.
hyperbolic time chamber.
I can't find it. Um, I forgot my quarters.
It's over
Yeah.
9,000.
Oh.
It's over 9,000. Anyway, but yeah, so okay, they definitely conquered. I'll say this: they conquered Nanking, and there were civilian mass civilian casualties. That's fair to say, right?
Oh, they pushed them
In
around.
fact, I believe there was an indiscriminate bombing campaign in which they bombed places that were of zero strategic advantage, you know. So
Oh,
anyway, my
sure.
point is to say
Heard of
that they
that.
got very far down the Chinese coast, including Beijing. And in the process of this, Japan, always full of gumption, they built a complex set of rails that went from Manchuria down to all of these places that they were holding because they thought they were never going to not have it anymore. Um,
Very dumb,
well,
frankly.
I don't know. I think
This-
they thought that.
Well, when
I
did they
think they
build it?
thought
The
in the
third,
30s,
early,
dude,
late 30s.
late 30s.
Yeah,
Yeah, but America wasn't in the war yet.
you're right. Yeah. They should
They
have seen this
actually, I think
coming.
they for a long time thought America and Germany and Japan were going to be friends. I would say like a
That's so funny.
decent portion of Americans were ready for that, not for nothing.
Didn't they
And it
know
was
our
Pearl Harbor
progressive?
turned it around significantly.
Don't they know our progressivism's on the ascent?
Yeah, cope, seethe, dilate.
But yeah, as it turned out, we picked the side that would make the post-war period easier to deal, that much more easy to deal with.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true. Anyway, so for the next few years, the Japanese are building up an industrial base in the north of China, which sort of leads us to where we are now, 1940, essentially.
Now we can
The
start the
Yalta,
episode. Then we
I
can start
mean,
the book.
we can start the book. Yeah, the
Yeah.
book is short actually, so it's not that an
I mean,
indomitable a task for us to sort of cover. But the in 1940 the Yalta Agreement, or maybe it's 41, doesn't fucking matter. But in that span, um, the Soviets make a pact with the British Empire and the Americans. Very
China was
famous.
there
The
too,
Big
right?
Three. They were there. They did have representatives there, actually.
Yeah, wasn't it a few weeks prior to the actual discussion of what would be done with the Asian theater?
Well, here's the
Am I
thing.
wrong?
The prior to the death of FDR, he sort of did all this stuff himself, and he didn't like consult with anybody on it. Well, he would tell people what he had done afterwards, of course, but his mind space, like his head space, was not explained to anyone.
The Moscow approach.
I
It's
mean,
kind of
I
like
think that's like the
Stalin.
world's approach, and that's kind of. I mean, I'm sure Winston Churchill applied as similar.
It kind of does
He was
seem like
controlled, to be fair.
yeah. And Stalin, I mean, we could get into how much of that was just like, you know, creeping dementia, but
Yeah, could very well could be. I mean, I get definitely he does come off as non-committal and
paranoid.
paranoid, of course, yeah. But
Well,
I will say
beyond
this,
what's necessary.
yeah. But I would say this is that this book, and I shared a screenshot of, maybe I'll pull that screenshot up actually, but there's a screenshot of I took of the book that
The
it really
visual
blew my
element.
fucking mind. It blew my fucking mind.
I think I know
Um,
which one this is. I'm excited to see.
I'm trying to find the first thing in the first term in it
This
is
was a photo in the middle of the book of Chiang Kai-shek in a dress,
yeah.
doing the flappy daffy, a very hip dance from the 30s.
This sucks.
Smoking
I'm having
opium,
trouble.
that whole thing. I mean, that's a whole other. While we're on, in
I got it.
this
Got it. I got it.
continent,
I got it. I
never
got it.
mind. You'll never know where I was going.
Okay, so but part of the Yalta Agreement was that because okay, this is really complex and I don't want to get too bogged down in it. But basically, Stalin was afraid of getting his ass kicked in the East because he was putting everything into the European front and the
Hmm.
counteroffensive after Stalingrad.
Give me 3 months.
Essentially. But he
Yeah.
also in that other time before the Yalta Agreement, he had actually signed a non-aggression pact with the Japanese.
Mm.
And this same shit he did with Hitler, by the way, he literally just did it so he could build up his forces and be ready to fight them. Um, so part of the Yalta Agreement was that they were going to have to. America wanted the Soviets in. So this is kind of contrary to much of what I was told as a young man
Hmm.
about the entire Japanese theater of World War II, which is the idea that America wanted all the glory and all the power to themselves, so they wouldn't have to share with the Soviets. What I'm now to understand from reading this book is that is very much not the case. Particularly, FDR had wanted a robust treaty and truce and or alliance, I should say, with the Soviets in
Hmm.
perpetuity. First of all,
Right.
second of all, the thing that was shocking to me is that this seems to be requited on the part of Stalin. Now I'm going to read this quote here. Oh yeah, so part of the Yalta Agreement was though is that would be that FDR put pressure on Stalin to make a separate peace with the GMD, the Chinese government, the Chinese nationalist government, in order to ensure that relations are normalized between them. Yeah, I'll just read this thing. But this is exactly pertaining to it. Stalin never wanted to have his treaty with China damage his relations with the United States. The Soviet leader had, since FDR's death, tried to use the China issue to improve his relationship with Washington. His strategy during the negotiations was to avoid making demands that the Americans would consider as directed against their position in China. He would thus not ask to station Soviet troops in Manchuria or sponsor political concessions to the Chinese communists. So, meaning he would step over the Chinese communists in order to simply favor the Kuomintang, in order to simply keep things kosher, pun intended, with the Americans. His
No
other
pun.
demands, Stalin thought, would not upset Truman because they would be accompanied by a treaty of alliance between himself and Jiang Jieshi, aka Chiang Kai-shek. Since this treaty guaranteed the Chongqing regime against the challenges from the CCP, Stalin believed it served the American purpose in China as well as his own. So, what I'm trying to say here is that under no uncertain terms was the Cold War an inevitable conflict, at least as it relates to the Asia. Now we could talk.
And
That's a
Stalin.
whole separate conversation. Well, no, I was going to say it's a separate conversation to talk about places like Hungary, Romania. That was another issue, and then eventually Germany. But The book makes the case, and I tend to agree with this, given that this is an earlier chronological thing that happened. This China stuff. I believe that these events actually escalated tensions over the question of Romania and Hungary, and further contributed to the overall emotional environment and geopolitical environment that created what we now to know today as the Cold War. Um, and I want to say this is that FDR, and everyone knows I'm no fan of FDR. In fact, I do think he very much represents the ascendant progressive forces within the United
Three
States.
terms was enough, I think.
He did less than
Call
that.
me
We didn't
crazy.
finish the third one, if you recall.
That's
But
fine.
regardless, but however, Harry Truman, who by the way was not the next guy in line, he was randomly air quotes chosen to be the guy. He was essentially courted by the most radicalized aspects of military intelligence. He, in the book, by the way, goes out of its way to say that throughout his interaction with the China policy, he was solely listening to the War Department, and which, by the way, and name dropping, by the way, I can't remember all the names off the top of my tip of my tongue right here, but name dropping some of the most known to be radicalized Cold Warriors like archetypes, like the kind of people that are being parodied in Doctor Strangelove, like
Yeah.
Rand Corporation types. These guys who have like systematized war, and they think that greater societal goods can be gained from war.
They're like the Iron Mountain Globetrotters.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't
But
know.
also another thing is can cons. Oh yeah, duh. One of the names that keeps popping up is one Bill Donovan. Ever heard of him?
Oh, Wild Bill. Oh, back in the day.
But yeah, there's like 6 or 7 passages in this book where it's like Bill Donovan reported to Truman that bullshit. Like the next sentence is bullshit.
Bill Donovan told John. Oh no, I almost said it. I almost dropped the big
The big this
JBS.
yeah.
Yeah, that threw me for a spin, man.
Yeah. Well, we're
But
coming to
no,
that.
absolutely. The fact that this is Wild Bill's hands all over this. Um, OSS is obviously operating in this
Operating.
theater.
Yeah.
Um, and then what comes up
Particularly
right
given that a
after
lot of this
this?
stuff happens in 1945,
Hmm.
which is actually sorry, the Yalta Agreement is actually in
44.
is in 44, right?
Yeah.
But regardless, I'm saying like a lot of this stuff is after like the main operations of the European theater are over. So now it's
Mm.
whole hog time for the OSS to go buck wild over in the the Asian front.
I want to fill in the gaps in my head about the drug trade in this area because there's no way that this, you know, like where in this whole drama are the triads playing their part?
Well, the
Because
triads are the KMT or the GMT
oh,
essentially. That's
that's
what
good
I've
to
come to
mention.
understand
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, yes, came across that as well in my studies
I've
that Guy Sheck had some triad friends that he kept close. Yeah,
right.
in
And
government.
also I think like part of the whole like triads infiltrating communist China was like very much geopolitical. It's like literally like the GMD's like getting its revenge back on on the rest of China,
Hey,
aided by the worst elements of the American intelligence.
you know where they never infiltrated? Oh, that's not true. Never mind. I was gonna say Kowloon.
Yeah,
The
there you go.
triads did, but I don't think any kind of concentrated government presence
The eternal geep.
could not stand that long in Kowloon, walled city. Rest in
Oh
peace.
yeah, oh yeah, they did. I
That's
was
what
gonna
I'm talking
say,
about.
yeah, you're right. Um,
Um,
go ahead, check
yeah,
out our bonus episode on Kowloon Walled City. Very good episode.
if you're curious. Yeah,
Um,
so
but yeah, so let's try to get all the
oh,
moving parts here.
Wild
So okay,
Bill.
for the last oh, this is also important. So you said that there were 400,000 Chinese communists
Yeah,
at Yan'an at the
yes,
time of the end of the Great March.
yes. Well, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, they
S-
ballooned to that.
Well, forces, I believe, after the second treaty. we're
Okay.
hovering around 400,000. By the time we get to Yalta, we're looking at a total displacement where I think it was right around 4 million troops for the National
Oh,
Army.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
It shot down to 2.5 or 1.5, something like that. And the communists tripled or quadrupled their
To
numbers,
1.5 million.
more or less, which,
Okay, so I have to say this. This is important. During this time period in which the Kuomintang are in decline after the Japanese have taken over mainland China, this is like the moment for the Chinese communists. Not only is there no central authority with which to distribute aid and trade, et cetera, they this is like now the Wild West essentially, and they're free to experiment with land reform. They take down local warlords and redistribute the land, which, by the way, a lot of fucking capitalist Zog apologists will say like, "Oh, they took those people's land." Or whatever, and it's like I'm like, dude, it's different in China. Like they were, like I said, they were buying 7-year-old girls with debt that was the 10 years taxes up front. Like,
hey, that's what they signed. They put an X on the paper, didn't
yeah,
they?
because they're illiterate. Yeah. But you get
I
what I'm
want to
saying,
talk. I want to talk about Mao's new democracy.
which is
There's just this one-off, and I think this was just placating, uh, the West. But uh, I don't want to take you too far off the track, so stay where you're going. I'll
okay. Well, I
wedge
was just
this
gonna say,
in.
so in this next few years, though, while the Japanese are in Manchuria, the Chinese communists make massive gains up into that region by deploying. By the way, Mao Zedong is now back in power in the CCP, and as such, they revert to the guerrilla war tactics, which are massively successful against the
Mm,
Japanese.
I heard they're very out of season, very passé.
Yeah, well, listen,
Not
maybe not for everybody.
not very new democracy, Scott,
Clearly not. Yeah.
which does have does leave room for a little capitalism. That's
Of
just a
course. Well,
paraphrase.
that's
That's a paraphrase.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So basically, that's what China is now. Essentially, is this like new democracy, which is literally, yeah. I think I
I
remember
like
now.
it.
You're jogging my memory. Actually, it's a new democracy of dictatorship for a democratic dictatorship. I think was the term that they used. Which, like I said, in order to get the economic engines going, you're going to have a little bit of private ownership of things. But regardless, the this time period represents a massive increase in literacy for the Chinese mainlanders, and again, people have got their clothes for the first time,
Yeah.
and regardless, they represent a change, finally a change in the status quo that literally thousands of years were like static for the people of China, essentially interspersed with random tragedies
And opportunities for people to do
to
good
pull
things
themselves up
for,
by their
hey,
bootstraps. Yeah,
hey
leather
now.
sandal straps.
Pull yourself up by your uh uh, uh bean sprout. Bean sprouts. I don't know what
Okay,
the
fine. It was we got there.
I don't know what they have long over there.
I don't know. But either way, so yeah, so and so at this point now, though, as you said, the National Army, the GMT guys, they're fucking up. Like they've literally they utilize the fact that China is so large to not get completely obliterated by the Japanese because the Japanese were like they moved so far like out to Chongqing is like the place. I believe this is in Sichuan province. Yeah, this is Chengdu. Chongqing is also known as Chengdu, which is in Sichuan. Regardless, but the point is that the only reason they survived is because they went so far away that the Japanese were like, we're not going to pursue them. I guess the only reason, the fact that China's so large is that they use that to their advantage, essentially.
We can see them and it's still too far.
Yeah.
That's how
I mean,
flat
it's
and
flat. It is
far.
flat. Yeah. But regardless,
That's
And
how
so
flat and
in this
far.
time though, they're in complete retreat and they're constantly by the way, they're constantly in need of assistance from other powers and they're being corrupt at the same time.
Yeah, and Chiang Kai-shek cannot get he's got like his 12 generals are like hogs that he has to corral. He's like trying to catch chickens with these guys. They're all just doing their own
Well, they
thing.
fucking kidnapped him.
Oh yeah. They did pull him they didn't kidnap him, they pulled him aside.
Right, okay, yeah. They kidnapped him because he was so monomaniacally obsessed with fighting a foe that he perceived as weak enough to beat, i.e. the Chinese communists, in spite of the fact that they were not. They could have easily probably withstood him. Um,
Don't you know
he
they
was
believe in something, Chang?
time and resources on fucking fighting them. And so his top generals were like his top guys were like no Ken. You're not doing that anymore. And interestingly the Communist International stepped in, I believe. Or no, it was the Soviets, I believe, stepped in
For
to
what?
suggest the second Grand Unified Front.
Yes, yes. Which Mao had the forethought to take that up gladly and know that what was guiding his supporters' hearts was their love of their
Chinese
land.
patriotism, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true patriotism, not just a paralytic uh and what just entrapment by the current national
Yeah, regime.
infrastructure. Yeah, like this thing is 30 it's this thing is barely 20 years old. Like what are you dedicated to the
Right, exactly.
GMP for? Hey, like it got me. Hopefully not.
But
Hopefully
regardless, so
I never
they
was
were able.
shot.
So I do want to introduce this concept here because I've recently been fully imbibed. I fully imbibed. Not that I think of it like as a positive thing, but I've imbibed the philosophy of the mind war, and very much I would say the idea is that between the GMD and the CCP clearly was fighting a better mind war than the GMD ever could.
10 out of 10. Absolutely.
Like, there was
Yes.
no way that the GMD could ever be ultimately successful, besides through just brute force, which I think that was out the window at this point because there was enough of people on the CCP side that it would be a Pyrrhic victory at best.
And that's why I think these people are uh uh they are amenable to the Christian revelation is because they understand that the kind of horror that you would have to perpetrate in order to win, you would be a king of a pile of cinders, king of ashes. Like there's yeah.
I don't know because they did not really learn their lesson from this, did they?
No, no, I didn't mean they learned the lesson. That's because they killed all the Christians.
Yeah.
And that's because they drove out and killed all the Christians in the decades prior. But uh, Kingdom of Heaven, that's my vote every time. But
Sure.
yeah, unfortunately,
But yeah, so but
it's the
basically
best
though,
that could
at this
happen.
point, the it's called the Xi'an incident, and the it was just actually 1936. Chiang Kai-shek is kidnapped by his own general, and it forces a GMD slash CCP truce against Japan, and yeah, and catastrophic losses, as I said, on the part of the GMD, and massive successes on the part of the CCP. So it's now becoming almost an unbalanced equation, essentially, which puts us at 1944, the Yalta Agreement, and this extremely tenuous
Yeah.
Stalin Chiang Kai shek truce slash alliance, I guess they would call it, treaty. And part of the treaty
And
is that
understanding.
the Russians would occupy Outer Mongolia, which, by the way, the GMD were like totally fine with because we're like, yeah, we've never had Mongolia. Enjoy. It's always been a autonomous region at best.
Still reeks of horse shit.
Yeah, and
from those
fermented
guys.
yogurt, yogurt booze. And
Hey,
and again, so that's where that quote I read from the book about Stalin not wanting to upset uh Daddy Jenky.
that
Um
Daddy Janky. Holy shit.
the
Uh
Yankees.
oh
The
yeah,
Jankies.
that's
The Jankies.
Daddy Janky. That's so funny. Um Stalin, have you ever seen the movie Death of Stalin?
I have. It
What do you
was
think of that?
funny. It was funny.
Pretty, I thought so, it was pretty amusing. I saw it before I was learned I knew things, so
I was
it's worth a
fairly learned,
rewatch.
I guess. I don't know. Oh, I guess I didn't know anything about this. This is all new to me.
Well, to
Um,
really know the events of the last days of his life and to know those guys by name and to know how actually in what succession those events happened would be helpful because
right.
it kind of all happens in like a Looney Tunes-esque montage,
Mm,
but still a fun film from my recollection, my
yeah.
recommendation. All right, back on track. Sorry.
Back on track. So, but okay. So in 1944, the reason why part of the Yalta Agreement insisted upon this is where this sort of misconcept, this sort of like biased information starts swirling here.
Sure.
The the entire intent of having Stalin signed a treaty with specifically the GMD and not the CCP was because first of all, there's a working relationship between the Americans and the GMD. Second of all, it's not explicitly ideologically in line with the Soviet Union, the
No.
GMD, and so they thought this was a way to like sort of contain Moscow
Yeah.
in Asia. Now, I don't think they realized though this was biased information being handed to Truman, as opposed to what we're literally. I believe the author of this book he wrote it in 1990 after or perhaps even after the fall of the Soviet Union, and he was like referring to like internal Soviet memos which are open for research to be like, yeah, it seems like Stalin was going into this with like fairly not not maniacal intentions. You know what I mean? I think that there was a path. There was a path to there being lasting peace between the Soviets and America. But if everything needed to be handled just so, and it was not handled just so.
Mhm. What would just so have been in your estimation?
Well, first of all, if FDR hadn't died, I'm not saying he's great either, by the way, but I think he would have made concessions to the Russians that Truman didn't,
Hmm.
in order to keep that alliance going.
A consistency in
Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah.
fact that it was all up in the air and this dude just fucking croaks was really not good for the course of things.
I think we
And it
the United
allowed,
S-
by the way, that like the most radicalized aspects of military intelligence and the OSS to swoop in on Truman and go cloister him away and be like whisper in his ears, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we took a real hard lesson from that in the United States, and we realized it's much easier to guide dementia-ridden senior citizens
Yeah,
uh,
that seems to be a
into.
tactic, legitimate tactic by the CIA.
Although old Joseph Robinette, I swear he's still with it.
Yeah, he's faking. You
He-
think he's gold bricking?
Ring that bell, Joe.
Well, they did it with Reagan though, also, so it's not like it's unheard of. However,
I'm looking for
um,
my jelly beans.
mommy used to call his wife mommy.
Oh my God. Imagine calling fucking Gorbachev mommy.
Isn't that an anecdote? I don't want to speak out of turn
Stop.
here.
No.
Didn't you like at the end get all confused and fuck shit up like that? I don't know.
Mommy. I mean, I'm not putting that on Reagan.
Fuck him.
He's got
Fucking
bigger, he's
hair
got
dye,
bigger,
fucking pussy.
there's bigger sins
Dye your
to
hair, bro. Um.
um
Anyway, so
yeah,
but yeah, so
a a peaceable resolution, as you were saying.
Right.
would have
So
been.
okay. And so but when the Japanese finally left. By the way, it's really interesting too is that the when the Japanese surrendered, which by the way, I also have to say this is that it's this book reiterated this is that the Japanese had offered to surrender already prior to
Yeah.
the bomb being
Never
dropped.
forget. Never forget that.
I can't forget that because obviously Truman was like, well, we got to drop this thing. Obviously, I'm not going to be the guy who didn't drop it.
Sir, the Japanese are calling. Not now. I'm dropping the bomb on them.
Yeah.
I'll
But
call them
regardless,
back
another
later.
interesting thing is that they were all evacuated by American ships back to Japan. And the Russians weren't able to, Russians and Chinese weren't able to move in until the Americans had ushered them out, the Japanese out.
And they took their sweet time.
They did. They took a
Yeah.
year, I think.
Yeah, hilarious. Under the guise of disarmament and what was it, de-radicalization or what have you?
Whatever. I
Who,
don't know.
whatever you want to call it.
They showed them hardcore pornography.
I mean, they could have shown them Hello Kitty, as far as I'm aware.
Well, that wasn't invented yet.
Well, exactly why it would have been so. It would have been like
So earth
the
shattering to
miracle at
them.
Fatima, not to be sacrilegious or anything, but
Isn't that one weird? Isn't that one not kosher?
listen, I bet it's very kosher.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're right about that. But let's
Ne
say a
never
nice one.
never neglect to mention
How
that the
about Our
Portuguese were
Lady of La
playing.
Salette? That one's nice.
Is that a good one?
It is. It's just
I,
two little orphan French children in the Alps saw Mary and she said hi.
I'm with it. I believe it. She didn't instruct them on anything geopolitically.
No. She said, hi, I love you. I'll always love you. Go tell everyone in town that I said that. Literally, that's the story.
I believe that, like I believe I have a left and a right hand, man. That I believe.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll
All
see. I'll
all this
find out when I
hoopla about.
die. If that's
Listen,
real or not. But regardless,
do I
anyway,
believe? Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's another the
make
Lady of
those kids
Fatima.
emperor. How about that?
Yeah.
Make them the emperor.
Yeah,
And
so what's it called? So anyway, the Russians take over Manchuria and they actually just start looting it, of course, because
what?
it's the Red Army. What else do they do? They rape and
What?
pillage. That's all they do. And
They sing songs. That'd be good.
American Chinese public opinion is fucking furious. The other thing is that I believe they put back in charge the guy who is in charge of the puppet regime, who is the Qing Emperor.
Yes. Yeah.
Now
So
grown up.
prior to him, they had the son of a warlord who was presiding over that region.
Yeah,
He retreated to the Japanese, who promptly killed him, I believe, right? And then
based
his son cozied up with the GMP, only to be ousted.
GMD
GMD, I'm sorry, to be replaced by the now awkward 26-year-old boy emperor.
boy emperor. Yeah,
Bless his heart. Can't make this shit up.
it's bad stuff. But basically, the when the Russians are in Manchuria and again they're looting essentially, and this is now getting into 1947. And this entire thing has been escalating intensely. The Marshall Plan happens,
Hmm.
or the Marshall Mission. It's not the Marshall Plan, it's the Marshall Mission. George C. Marshall, famous for being the guy who did the Marshall Plan later, was actually sent to China. He was part-time sent to China because I think I think actually a lot of the people said they were fucking OSS guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They call it the
He,
Dixie Mission.
yes, yes.
The Dixie
Marshall
Mission was
Marshall ends up becoming Secretary of State, and
Yes,
then he
that's when he's
really
the
starts
Marshall when he
getting
does the
stuff
Marshall
done.
Plan. Yeah, that's the one that
Yeah.
does the Marshall Plan. But his first try was this, and it was boy was it a failure. So the Marshall Mission was General George C. Marshall, going to China in order to oversee a political solution to the GMD/CCP system problem And the theory was we're going to create a a bicameral political organ like likened to that of the British Parliament and or American Congress and Senate. And it would be comprised of political parties, of which the two majority and minority would be the GMD and the CCP. That was the initial Marshall solution, which, I mean, I gotta say, that wouldn't have been a bad idea. But the problem was, guess who got greedy? Chiang Kai Shekels got greedy. He was
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure. He lied for years and said, yes, we're going to do this. They had talks for 2 years. The Chongqing talks, Mao himself, for the first time in 30 years, left Yan'an. He spent 30 years living in Yan'an, never leaving. And he went to Chongqing, both actually pronounced,
Sean
to
King.
say, okay, Sean King, went to Sean King's house, and he says, you white, you lying, you white. Went to Sean King's house, and he said, let's work this out. Let's have a bicameral. Meanwhile, he's all over the place because he's simultaneously saying, let's work this out to his internal party and also saying, get ready to kill these fucking people. Which, by the way, that sounds bad, but in GMD land, they were saying, we're not even going to do a political solution. We're just going to kill them.
Yeah. So, I mean,
We
in
just
the
need to
end,
get more guns from the Americans and more money from the Americans, and we'll do it.
oh, there's a great section toward the end here about Mao's mystification of international politics.
Love that part.
That's very funny. Mao's analyses of foreign affairs were schematic and shallow, put together without any understanding of the fluidity of diplomatic interaction or the thinking that motivated foreign
Pause
leaders.
right
Yeah.
there. Pause 1 second. I said before, he's a true believer, dyed in the wool believer of dialectical materialism and dialectical determinism. So,
Hmm.
and now again, it's different framing than that of the Marxist school or like the Marxist Leninist school, but it still very much has this literal magical thinking built into it. Which, by the way, I also want to say a criticism of National Socialism, or not so much National Socialism as an ideology, but Hitler, is that he also had this belief about the world was that National Socialism was inevitable, like almost on a mystical Nietzschean sense. You know what I mean? He thought it was the time, it was that it was had arrived, and that nothing could stop it. Which is why he did shit like let the British military get away at Dunkirk and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I think that's a critic.
Well,
But I know I don't do this very often, but that's a criticism I have for Adolf Hitler.
hey, golf, get it together. And
Get your
stop
head out of
taking
the
your,
sky, pal.
yeah. And realize that it ain't about what you want, it's what Zog wants, all right?
Yeah.
Know what part you play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless, but I only said that to say this is that that Mao suffered from this delusion as well. So go back to where you were right at that sentence, please.
Sure. His flawed interpretations stem not primarily from a lack of information or international developments, but rather from Mao's lack of understanding of how the great powers perceived their interests in East Asia. To him, the international situation was a constant contest between progressive and reactionary forces, where status was determined by points won or lost to each side. Mao told his staff that this game was always very complex and often played in secret. He therefore thought it impossible to judge from news reports or private conversations what agreements or conflicts really existed between the great powers.
Now, it's just a very silly way to think. By the way,
That's
it
how I
also,
approach everything.
yeah, I was gonna say it's just like it's so ignorant of the fact that people could be being lied to behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Where there's multiple points of interest on one side, air quotes.
Yes, absolutely.
It's completely ignorant of human nature in that sense.
What's so maddening is the idea that the same people that supplied this rhetoric and ideology to Russia, supplied it to China, and you have similar, uh, outcomes, but not really.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of why one just more advantageous to uh take the heel off than another and it got out of hand, it wriggled away. It's like when you put a cup over a bug and you think you're gonna get it, but then it's gone, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I will say this is that I think a real reason why this sort of bubbled over specifically in China is because both parties at this point, I mean both like the Chinese Communists and the GMD, they were so reliant on outside shit or permissiveness. Because I was going to say is that when the alliance between the Stalin and the GMD crumbled, which was all on the part of the GMD. I have to say that it's absolutely 100% of the part of the GMD. They would not work with anybody. They wanted their cake and eat it too.
And
Um,
yours too.
and I suppose, and the peasants at least.
Who
Um,
gave them cake?
I don't think they eat cake there.
I think a peasant would die if you gave them cake.
Yeah, he would just keel over from sugar. You could have
You'd
a
see
bland
Booga.
cake, I suppose, though.
Yeah.
But regardless, um, I was gonna say is so that bubbled over, and but at that point, so then at that point, based off the fact that the Americans are now treating the Russians with outright contempt, and again, this temperature is rising, and the book, by the way, outlines how this corresponds with stuff that's going on in Eastern Europe as well. And I can only imagine that like it it's almost like, we all know domino effect is bullshit, like the commonly held term domino effect where like each country is going to lead to another. But there must have been something like a psychological domino effect going on for the Soviets where they were, obviously they were never going to be, they never, I don't know that they were ever fully on board with the idea of a lasting peace, or concessions, I should say. I do think they had like a sort of avaristic outlook, uh, with which to conduct themselves, particularly as it related to the spoils of World War II. Um,
The
but
booty.
I would say like between they called it war booty. They called the
They did
northern
call it
cities
war
war
booty.
booty.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's on the record.
Yeah. And but yeah, so I'm saying, so I think though that like if at every turn there was misunderstanding. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Absolutely. Just a total underestimation of just how great the stakes were.
Right.
And yeah, I mean that should have been obvious from the amount of relief that Kai-shek was relying on.
Yeah.
But he wasn't using hardly half of it. He was, stowing away the loans and
Yeah, I think it was like
selling.
eating all the money. No, but what was happening though is that like the point is that if America wanted to come to the table, with an honest effort to make this political solution between the CCP and the GMD, they should have known that the GMD were backstabbing. Again, they wanted to just wait till the Americans turned their backs to kill the CCP.
Mm.
And
See,
so
man.
let me get this thought out.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a multi-layered thing I want to say.
please, yeah.
So they should have understood that and then said and made it more effort to, because they were insisting that they rebuild the the Republican National Army, no, the National Republican Army,
Mhm.
um, with CCP regiments like they had when they fought
Right.
the
Yeah.
warlords and when they had fought the Japanese. Um, but they did this by simply arming only the GMD. And the CCP were going, well, shit, now we're not going to be able to work with the Americans, clearly. They're clearly setting these guys up to fucking slaughter us to death as soon as they turn their backs. Which, by the way, I'm sure was that conversation was happening in the War Department. It was.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If there's one thing you can count on, it's that you should watch your back
Yeah.
when dealing with these yeah,
So
the great powers is
right.
called.
At the point though that this is 1946 we're talking about and at the point that the Soviets finally say bow out of this due to escalating tensions between the Americans and the Soviets. This leaves a massive power vacuum in Manchuria. Now, I said this earlier, but the Japanese built this up as an industrial base with rail lines that go all the way down to Beijing. Here's the thing, in this power vacuum, this was now a race for the CCP forces, which are almost as big as the GMD forces now, and the better equipped but worse trained GMD forces. However, the GMD forces were literally getting airlifted to the north by the Americans. So clearly, this is again another signal to the CCP that they're not, America is not your friends.
Yeah,
And
and they took the
the
hint.
they did, yeah. And so
Yeah,
this became like a sort of rush. The Zerg rushed the that's a reference you may or may not get, but somebody did. They Zerg rushed Manchuria. Guess who won? Just due to chance and strategy, the CCP. And now the CCP is now an industrial power because they now occupy areas that have an industrial zone and they start creating ammo. They start creating weapons, cannons, artillery. And now suddenly the GMD is shitting its fucking pants.
so with the GMD in this position, what do they do, Scott? Do they try
Oh, they
to
kick their asses.
the GMD was just beat to shit. Yeah, as it turns
Over
out.
time, oh, this. Oh, hang on. I actually have
I think
I
the
have a
49, I think
timeline
were
of
because it's
various
variable,
conflicts.
but I think the final
So okay,
hurrah.
1946, 1947, Ping offensive. This is when they were fighting over Manchuria, essentially. But the both sides kind of won at different times, but the CCP learned how to hold cities essentially and fight back the GMD, which has allowed them to build up their industrial, you know, base.
And it's the securing those areas which made the industrialization, which the what did they prove Marx wrong by saying that we don't have to industrialize to become a coherent communist state or whatever.
Well, they didn't prove Marx wrong because I think Marx said that the socialism springs out of a current workers having a
Oh, I'm
revolution.
sorry. It was Stalin's reasoning for not providing more aid to them was that they're not ready to be
Oh
a
yeah, I think he
communist
was just
nation.
being like racist to them.
Oh man,
He's like
don't
they're
do that.
Chinese. They don't. You know they were racist. You know
They're
Stalin
not ready
hated
to be
Jews, dude.
Christian. They're not ready to be communist.
I'm not saying they're not. I said they are ready
Only
to be
thing that
industrialized. I'm saying
oh,
Stalin was throwing that dirt on them.
hey, you know what's reggae? My Szechuan chicken. All right, sorry,
It's that
sorry,
Sichuan chicken.
Szechuan.
But yeah, so in 1948, the Lao Shen campaign, um, and the city of Jinzhou was like the turning point, essentially.
Hmm.
But that was like the last place that the GMT held, and the CCP now learned to like actually attack a city and win.
Which throughout this whole period, they've been di what was it? Dip, dive, duck, dick, dodging. That they will just happily evacuate a city, leave, without any concern of it being, their headquarters for 10 years.
Yeah,
That's been the modus operandi of the communists. They're happy to move and set up base, and they'll lose half of their followers on the way to the next stop, but they'll gain as many, if not more, in yeah,
yeah.
uh, uh,
Like, considering the fact that
conscripts.
they usually when they come around, they're like, okay, here's food,
Here's food. Here's a shirt. It's a long shirt. We have no pants, so make it work.
and
Uh,
here's an armband that says you're on our team.
be careful who you wear that around.
Yeah. So by the way, this is also where like people like Deng Xiaoping become like relevant figures. Like that's another interesting thing about like this movement is that like people it wasn't just like a armchair intellectual thing. Like these guys
Mm,
are literally holding rifles.
yes, absolutely. Except Shekel. Yeah, he.
Yeah, he never was. That's
When
interesting. Yeah.
when the hell did when was the
They
last
called
time
him
the man
Generalissimo, but you know,
hilarious? I came across a headline
he
from
adopted that himself, you know.
yeah, that's which makes this weird blurb even funnier. I found this headline from a national newspaper, something about China needs Chinese Mussolini. What?
Yeah.
Okay, who came up with that headline? Who who was
Well, Mussolini was like a star. Like prior to him being friends with Hitler, like they were like excited with it. I was excited at
interesting?
him.
Yeah.
Like in fact, I would say that like the same progressive forces that Mao thought were ascendant were applauding Mussolini in the early years of the fascist regime because they found a way to do like social reform without overturning capitalism, essentially.
Hmm.
And like people who like the, you know, like technocrat type people in America, like Taft, William Howard Taft, or people, someone like FDR probably, or TR, probably Teddy Roosevelt, probably liked Mussolini.
I can
Wouldn't you
see that.
think?
I like Mussolini.
He seems cool. Il Duce seems cool. He rocks being bald. He single-handedly makes like if you just adopt that swag and you're bald, there's no downside.
I don't know, man. He always had the best angles if you know what I mean. It was
I don't
always
know.
from down up, you know. He's always on a
I
balcony
think he rocks.
somewhere.
I think he rocks a bald head, and I think you're fucked for saying otherwise.
I didn't know I didn't Mamma Mia over here. I didn't know I stepped on your listen. Hey, leave the gun. Bring the cannoli, Scott,
Bring the
please.
Bic razor. Um,
But
you know, I
so
was in a bar last Saturday night, and it
okay.
randomly just said leave the gun, take the cannoli, or sorry, leave the cannoli, take the gun.
And on that note, I was in a knockoff Chinese goods store, and I came across this absolute stunner of a hoodie that only the visual, only those
It's
with
not
the
gonna pick up in the camera. I promise you, it's gonna be a complete waste.
bullshit, bullshit. I'm
I
gonna find it.
promise you. You want to bet?
No, it's right here. Ready?
It's
Hey.
completely white screen. Damn it, I can see it. Okay, that's pretty sick. I don't know that I would
Holy
run.
shit.
It's pretty
It's
awesome.
a white hoodie with the red Godfather, and it's just like, I don't know, like uh it says take the cannoli on the arm the long way. And it looks like, I don't know, Gran Turismo-esque.
Yeah. Okay, that
Uh
kind of rocks.
I got
I defer to you on that one.
I got you one. Don't worry.
I hope you didn't actually.
I didn't.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Um, but yeah. So hey, guess what? I was right. Chongqing is Chengdu, by the way.
Chongqing
I'm
is
not
Chengdu?
always I'm not always full of shit.
Never, not ever. Folks, we believe everything we say on here, except for the jokes.
True.
Yeah,
But yeah, so basically though,
not really.
The Chinese communists they rolled through China and eventually they got to Beijing and they negotiated a peace in Beijing and they took over Beijing without a shot fired.
Thank God for that. It only took 50 years or
Yeah.
however many for people to just accept that the new regime is here to
Yeah.
stay.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I think the fact is that there was like a terrible, brutal campaign in the lead up to
Oh,
that.
oh, that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I must have been one of the landlords.
Now
That,
let's talk about the little nugget we discovered. Was that
oh
part of the
man.
Dixie mission, which was an intelligence
Mm,
effort on the
Dixie
part,
missionary.
I guess he was, but
Yeah.
on the part of the military intelligence and the OSS, which I think the OSS was part of the military Department of War at the time. It's prior to it having been spun off into the CIA, of course. But the as it was part of the overall it was a part of the overall Marshall mission. But it was the effort from the Americans to go make touch base with the communists. Um, and in this, where do we start? Did we just talk about this dude prior? Because I was shocked to find out that the origin of the John Birch Society, in fact, John Birch himself, his origin story, not his origin story, but his martyrdom, is right at the heart of this, I would say, borderline clandestine military intelligence operation in the middle of China in the midst of a bloody civil war.
No, this guy
So
just
John Birch is a guy. He's a second generational Christian missionary. Now, I want to stress here that his parents were Presbyterian, and his parents were Presbyterian missionaries in India. Now, I say this
mm,
because when they were in India, which is 1917, India was British India, and Presbyterian is sort of kind of Anglicanism. It's
mm,
sort of the
yes,
Scottish version of Anglicanism. So it
more
stands to
respectable.
reason. It stands to reason, though, that there would be a Presbyterian missionary in India. No, is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say so at all. No, yeah, it's perfectly possible.
Cromulent, perfectly cromulent. But my point being is though, is that I hasten to say, and I think we talked about this earlier in the episode, but generally speaking, particularly Protestant missionary work in geopolitical hot zones are generally speaking in cover for intelligence operations, broadly speaking.
Scott, you're talking about the Lord here. You're talking about
Yeah,
the word
talking
of
about
the Lord as
Protestantism.
as through Martin Luther and then Calvin and then
And then a million
whoever
other English speaking theologians.
dickheads.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there is
Dime store theologians.
though the subject of our piqued interest here, Mr. Birch,
Mr.
Mr.
Birch, he was
John
just simply a
Birch.
child in India, of course, but so he went back to America, um, and he made something of a legend of himself in college. In fact, he made newspaper articles in
Yeah,
college for being part of the much publicized biblical fundamentalist movement against the teaching of evolution in schools. So this is like
yes.
a textbook legend, as the term is used in the
Yeah.
intelligence community, is the idea that this person's identity is conspicuously plastered into news articles and et cetera, and sort of into his public memory
The
at a
idea
young
of
age.
the idea of giving you someone's timeline before you go looking for it. As
Well put.
if that's
So, and then after that, after his regular college, he enrolled in a second layer of college in what I can only assume is a CIA cutout or some kind of military intelligence cutout. It's the Fundamental Baptist World Ministries College, in which you study to become a Baptist a missionary to go around the world and do what I can only assume is nefarious shit.
no. You're
Well,
giving
by the way, it's
people
worth mentioning that I believe that like Marion Petty, who if you remember from the Finders, was a Baptist missionary across Vietnam and
Oh
China
shit.
and Japan as well. I
That's
could be
ringing a bell.
misremembering that, but I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
we
he
gotta
was as
look that
well.
back up. Folks, correct us if we're wrong
Well, I
and
know. I'll say this:
vindicate us
Marion
if we're
Petty was
not.
definitely a missionary. That's
Uh,
that's not up for debate. I just don't remember what type of religion he had or espoused, I should say.
yeah, that's a better way to put it.
However, so anyway, he is sent to China under the auspices of. Then, meanwhile, this is during the. I believe this is during the Republic of China era. He's there a long time. Um, and he's there through the time where the Japanese actually take over. And So to the point where he actually reaches out once the Japanese have invaded mainland China, he reaches out to the American mission in China, what do you call it, ambassador in China, to say, "Hey, I'm an American citizen and a missionary, and I'm fluent in Chinese, and I've been here for 10 years or something." Oh, this is, by the way, when the Americans enter the war against Japan, I should say. And I would like to do
Timely.
anything I can to help the American war effort, even though I'm supposedly a man of God. So he initially offers to be a chaplain in the U.S. Army, but they say, "Oh, no, 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 we got a way
No,
better thing for you
you're
to
an
do."
officer, buddy.
Well, to be fair, he was a college graduate, so I think they would probably make him an officer, for
Whatever
the
the
record.
fuck that's worth. Back then, it
Two,
was
he
worth
went to two
something.
colleges. He went to a college where they were teaching evolution in 1920
I know,
something.
guy- I know guys who went to three colleges. You
They're
know what the
still
third one
idiots.
is? Clown college.
Yeah,
All right.
Hamburger University.
Oh man, no, but that was the time when if you were meant for college, you went to college rather than
Yeah,
yeah.
you just go for funsies, yeah,
This
and
guy,
to have
yeah,
sex.
this guy probably had his
Many people
bearings
choose
about
to
him.
go to college so they can have sex for the first time outside of their parents' house.
God help them.
Yes. Okay, so regardless, he makes a fast track up into directly into the OSS. He answers to the OSS. In fact, I think
Yes,
he's literally an
right.
OSS agent.
Direct to Wild Bill. Wild Bill's
He's answering
yeah,
directly
yeah,
to
yeah,
Bill
yeah.
Donovan. Okay, so the story goes is that he was on the Dixie mission, and he was traveling somewhere in Chinese communist territory. Um and he was taking a series of trains. Oh, we had a Chinese like manservant who was with him at all times.
I wish.
And yeah, a midget with a top hat. Old heads know that reference. But what's it called? Yeah, so he's headed there, and he has to take a series of trains. In fact, some of the trains are actually dismantled, and he has to get on a hand cart, like one of those things like in cartoons.
Rickshaw.
No, no, one of the things on the train, like a train where you pump,
Oh,
like in
like
Bugs
old,
Bunny. Bugs
like
Bunny would
oh
be
brother,
riding
where
on
art
it.
thou?
Yeah, oh brother, where art thou? Yeah, same
There
thing.
you go. All right.
Yeah. So
You've been
he's
a
traveling
long
across
way.
China. He's traveling across China in one of those, and he arrives at some point in somewhere deep into Chinese communist territory, according to all sources, incredibly non-perturbed by the aggression of the Chinese communists,
Oh yeah.
which is obviously being played up intensely for this story. Um, and they insist that he disarm his sidearm, and he says, "No, I'm an American officer. I have every right to be carrying it. I'm here on a diplomatic mission, etc., etc." And the story goes that they said, "Fuck you." They shot his manservant in the thigh and clubbed him over the head. And then the story
Yeah.
goes that they surrounded Captain John Birch. He was captain, right? Captain John Birch. He was. I'm
Yes.
positive of it.
Yes.
And they beat him within an inch of his life, made him kneel, and executed him. He killed him execution style through the back of the head with a rifle. And the story goes that this was reported back to his family, that this was a friendly fire incident, stray bullet friendly fire incident, and an accident, and that no foul play was suspected. And this story went on for about 5 or 6 years. And his family back in America had this big, very public facing campaign about the truth of what happened to John Birch. and I'm sure they were not aided by anybody in this. It was totally self-starter kind of thing.
Yeah. You're being
Um,
facetious.
of course,
We're
of
we're
course.
certain that there was plenty of play given to the fact that he was killed by those darn communist bastards.
Right.
Yeah.
Culminating, of course, in the 1950s. I'm not sure exactly what year, perhaps for another day's research. Um, what's it called? In the creation of the John Birch Society, the creator of which being a high-ranking naval intelligence officer, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Right. Yes, I do believe naval
And if I'm not
intelligence.
mistaken, the co-founder of it also went on to start the Council for National Policy.
Yes, that I can almost certainly attest to. Robert Welch was, let's see, U.S. Naval Academy,
Thank you.
Harvard Law School. There it is.
Yeah.
Found you. We got you.
We got your ass.
Oh
Okay, so
shit.
for those of you not familiar with the John Birch Society and what they believe, it is a farcical conspiracy group that is the very most prototypical Dems are the real racist, conservative, um, capitalism, proto Reaganism, even like
Sure.
this idea that they had a lot of emphasis on like the virtues of capitalism specifically. And it's oh, and by the way, also like they it's just a de-radicalization thing. And by the way, a lot of people who are spooked out got their start in it, I should say, as another thing.
It's
That's a whole other conversation, of course.
yeah, or it's an acceleration skit. It accelerates the skits. It steers you in the
Well,
wrong
it's worth mentioning
direction.
that Bob Matthews of the or Bride Bruderschweigen was got his start in John Birch
Oh
Society.
shit. There you go.
But there's a few people who start in John Birch Society and later come into more prominence in other forms of radical Fed type politics.
The idea is to get you in a van with three other white guys, right? In Oklahoma City, all right? And
Yeah,
just sit there quietly.
right. But you guys, what you talk about is that the government is controlled by a shadowy cabal
Ooh,
of
really?
communists.
Aliens. Oh,
No,
oh.
might as well be fucking
Huh.
aliens. But so the idea basically is like it has all the tropes we love, but it attributes all of the maleficence onto an international communist conspiracy with which I think they said every single president from after Eisenhower is a communist secretly.
Rats. Shit. Oh no. What does this mean for us, Scott?
It
Living
means
in
absolutely nothing. It
2025.
means you're looking for fucking spooks. You're looking for ghosts.
Oh man,
You're
yeah.
looking for ghosts in the attic, basically, for the rest of your life, and you never learn anything about genuine geopolitics. It's literally, it's like proto-libertarianism. It actually has a big
Sure.
overlap with libertarianism.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
it's a trap for high IQ white guys to get sucked into something that's completely fake and without substance.
Well, what they're really it gives them what they're looking for, which is a conclusion.
Yes, yes, yes.
Which we're not here to expecting to ever find one,
Right.
other than the ones we have, which seem to be working pretty good.
Yes.
The
But the point
rhythm
is that
continues.
um it sort of steps over any and all CIA. I guess they have an aspect of criticism of the CIA to a degree, but I would say that their characterization of is that they're secret commies working for the Soviets. You know what I mean?
Rats.
So
Yeah,
whatever, man, it's fake. But my point is that you can see where this all sort of this is a cosmic confluence here.
yeah.
We have Truman making decisions based on the limited information that he's being given from people who are, in my opinion, bad actors within military intelligence and the broader intelligence like cult, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, and you have this literal martyr, this almost like perfect martyr with like such a sketchy fake background, and then you have this society, or yeah, John Birch Society emerging out of it that only seeks to reinforce those silly and fucking farcical radical talking points that we know to be coming from bad actors. And then further, you get that story of the guy who is the commandant of the German Air Force base that was handing out John Birch Society literature pamphlets to the people on the base.
Amazing.
The entire fucking Cold War is a massive psyop. Like, it's so insane that they perpetuated this completely like constructed ideological conflict. Again, I have to remind you guys that Stalin, during all this time, he's making on time payments to the fucking Rockefellers.
Well, you don't want to be late, do you, Scott?
I don't think he does. But my point is that this entire thing is a dialectical lens with which to observe what is a unipolar world, essentially.
There it is. Yeah, absolutely. When you say making on-time payments to the Rockefellers, do you mean paying back those loans that
Yes.
floated them for, however long throughout the war? Yeah,
Yes. And prior to
a,
the war, too,
a
in like the 20s and
unipolar
30s.
world.
It's a unipolar world we live in, and it's all machinations of international finance, essentially, in order to construct false forces with which the little people can understand society. You know what I mean? And like, again, like there's this, I think there's like almost like a reactionary, not to throw fuel on the mouth
Z-
fire here, but
yeah,
there's kind of a
Zedong.
reactionary movement happening in America right now. Um, that I think is bad because it's trying to reframe discussion around this false dichotomy, this left-right dichotomy. In a time where I think, by the way, we've never had more common ground with the other side, air quotes,
Yeah.
given that we've all been party to a genocide taking place. It's not stopped, despite the fact that the reactionary forces I just mentioned are they're having a fucking victory dance right now. A lot of them, I know. So I know a lot of them are. Some of them are on planet Earth, and they understand that this is all a farce in its own right. But there's a non-zero amount of people who are cowed by this idea that there is peace in the Middle East and that this genocide hasn't stopped. And the other thing is, like, again, I just think that there's this not there's this idea that things should be reframed around like the communists are bad, and like, actually Henry Kissinger was based. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, based on what?
yeah, perfect, perfect.
What was he based on? The Leviathan?
Yeah,
What?
who's he based off of?
What was he based on?
Simon.
Svengali? What? What do you want?
Anyway, I
Oh
just wanted to
gosh.
say, I don't know, I just this whole thing really shattered a lot of misconceptions I had about, first of all, like the Asia theater of the Cold War.
Hmm.
And this book really reframed the entire thing. Here, what's the term that is actually used in the book that he uses? It's a four
Oh,
paneled,
for I have it actually highlighted right here.
a
Is
four.
folks, it's a four-cornered pattern of analysis.
Thank you. Four
Yeah,
cornered pattern, four cornered struggle. I'm looking at it as well.
there it is.
It's not a binary civil war. Each actor was reading and misreading the other three, which produced escalation spirals. That's a
That's
quote.
perfect. That's perfect.
That's a quote from a 1993 review of the book.
That's yeah. Yeah, this is the kind of perspective that is
Earth
it's
shattering. It's earth shattering. It
yeah, it's
destroys preconceived notions that feed into popular sentiments that reinforce the false dialectical conflicts that we see in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let the TV tell you who your enemies are.
Yeah. No
Go look
Chinese
in
ever
the
called me chud.
go look in the mirror.
Never no Chinese ever called me goy.
Chinese have their own chickens. They ain't stealing them out of my backyard for
Yeah.
ritual
Sacrifice. Yeah.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
They
Anyway,
do keep their own. Let me
they
tell you,
do. That's right.
in the inner city.
Um, but anyway, so I think we did. Do you think we did an okay job with specifically framing the book?
Oh, yeah. I think folks should. If you didn't get enough out of this, it's definitely worth a
Pick it
read
up.
if
It's a
you're in.
short read. It's 200 pages with no.
Not even. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
not
like
even 200 with
190.
the without the notes. It's not even 200. It's
Yeah.
definitely a riveting uh, uh, play-by-play of this very, very tight period in history that is greatly influenced by decades prior and greatly influences decades there,
Hence.
hence. Yeah. So um, hopefully we can reapply this.
Yeah. Every time I read a book, it helps me understand like the overall picture better. So that's like again, I just wanted to say this. Let's pull the curtain aside a little bit here. I just want to say thank you all for listening to the show, and I just wanted to say,
Agreed.
it's a lot of work we do on this
Oh,
show,
my ass.
and I just want to say that like you know
We love you.
all we want to do is put out episodes that interest you. You know what I mean? That's our fucking mission statement essentially. And we want to learn together. So I'm really happy for all of you. This is from me to you. This is from genuine, heartfelt sentiment here. But I really appreciate you guys like coming along on like the journey, if you will, not to use trite,
No, it's not.
iconography or anything, but thank you so much for being a part of this because I do feel like every time I learn something new, I do have a better understanding. I just hope that you guys also feel that way. And I hope it helps you sort of make sense of this world that many people find like distressing and helping me understanding it better really makes me say like maybe it isn't hopeless. Is that
Yeah.
crazy? Yeah.
No, I agree. At least that all this madness wasn't by accident, which means that it happened on purpose, which means that someone had to make it happen, which means they had to
You can
intend
reverse
for it to
engineer it.
happen. Yeah. Well, what? So we can't go the opposite way? The
Yeah.
hell?
Can't go our own way. Go your own way.
You can go your own way.
Uh, anyway, thank you for listening. Again, www.historyhomos.com is where you can get the RSS feed. We're also available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin, and most importantly, please catch up with us at historyhomospod.substack.com. If you like this episode, there is a immediately relevant other episode about the Kowloon Walled City. It's in the recent, just in the last few months. And again, there's a huge backlog of bonus episodes, but more importantly, you get an additional episode every single week in addition to this main episode. And it's 100% more show. It is not a inferior product behind the paywall. It is equal or it's equal or greater value.
I like that.
And yeah, so please help us out. And not to bitch, but like make all the work pay off a little bit for us. Like I'm very appreciative of you guys, but it is a lot of work, and I think you can tell lately, especially when really busting our asses. So help us out. Help us out over at historyhomospod.substack.com. And I don't know. That's my plea. I'm not. I'll say. I said this in the group chat today. I'm not podcast rich. I'm not a trust fund kid. I'm a regular guy who gets up at 4 in the morning to get bit by mosquitoes in my manual labor job all day, and then comes home and does this show. So help us out. Make it worth our while. Not that it isn't. It is worth our while, but throw some our way. Appreciate it. Historyhomospod.substack.com. And also, if you want to come chat with us, I'm available all the fucking time, basically. In the at time of recording, friendliest place on the internet. At the Telegram group, t.me/historyhomos is the channel. T.me/historyhomos chat is the chat. Please join us over there. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you'd like to buy one of the dwindling stock of T-shirts, I don't think. Don't quote me. I'm not gonna say what size we have left, but we're dwindling. Email me at historyhomos@gmail.com with your size and address, and again, any questions, comments, or concerns. If you want to follow us across social media, Twitter and Instagram, that's at historyhomospod. Die with dignity. Patrick, what would you like to say in closing for the show?
I'd like to quote a Chinese emperor by saying, "I set no value on strange or ingenious objects, and I have no use for your country's manufacturers."
Later, homos.
已经走了，走到哪里去了？我有很多话想跟他说，他没有回答我。有些敌人被杀，有些敌人已经逃走，还有一些人藏在村庄里，我再也无法回头。嗨嗨嗨！我把名字写在这棵榕树下的石头上，如果明天我战死沙场，请记得我。请记得我，我的爱人已经走了，去长沙跟情人见面。我本想与他同去，但有人必须在这里保卫这个国家，我再也无法回头。嗨嗨嗨！我把名字写在这棵榕树下的石头上，如果明天我战死沙场。